you want to go back and reference this later on, we are going to have this recording on our YouTube channel. So you can take notes if you want to, but I will also be sending this PowerPoint out to everybody and you can rewatch. My name is Willa. I'm the recruiting coordinator of employer relations at Tufts. So basically in the Career Center, we have a team that specifically is helping to work to connect students and employers who are looking to hire students. So a big part of what I do is work with the Handshake app. So some of you may have worked with Handshake a little bit, seen the platform, been familiar with it. Some of you, maybe it's brand new. Either way is totally fine, but hopefully some of you maybe have been following along with our Get Hired on Handshake campaign that we've been doing recently for the next several weeks. If you take a look at our website, you'll see that we're going to be posting blog posts every week that are just going to give you some tips and tricks on how to utilize Handshake to make the best of it so that you can meet with employers, find job opportunities, and just kind of use it as another tool that can be in your toolbox for your career exploration. So this is one of a couple of events that we're doing throughout these next few weeks to just kind of get the word out there and get you all really excited about the Handshake platform, because I think it's really awesome and I hope that you all do too. Handshake really is just kind of one of many different tools that are going to be part of your process to find jobs. So I don't want to make you think that this is the only way that you can find opportunities, but it is one really cool way to kind of streamline different jobs that you might be looking for. There's a whole bunch of employers that will all use the same Handshake platform to post opportunities. There's opportunities to meet with different employers through the Handshake platform, to message them directly, to message other students, even alums who maybe have worked previously at a company that you're really interested in, that you want to learn more about. You can, message them and say, hey, I saw that you worked at Wayfair. I'm curious about Wayfair. I'd love to talk to you. So one of the other cool things about Handshake is that in this virtual world that we all exist in right now, there is the opportunity to host career fairs entirely virtually, entirely on the Handshake platform. So some of you maybe have attended our career fairs in the past. They used to be in person. They're all virtual now. And Handshake allows us the opportunity to have these career fairs streamlined all in one place. So when you meet with employers, you can meet with them through a Handshake video platform even. Sometimes they will use a Zoom link or like a different external link if that makes more sense for their company. But most of the time in our career fairs, you can just navigate all of it directly through Handshake. So that's why we wanted to bring you guys together today, was to talk a little bit about how you can utilize Handshake to really kind of make the most of this career fair and just maximize your experience. It can be a little intimidating to sign up for a career fair and not really have a clue what to expect the platform to look like once you've gotten in. And so we just wanted to take this chance to, I'll share some screenshots and images that can give you a sense of what to expect. If we have time at the end, I'm also going to turn off my PowerPoint and do a screen share and actually kind of manually walk you through, here's how to register for the career fair. Here's how to set up your schedule. So hopefully that will relieve a little bit of anxiety that some of you might feel if you've never attended a virtual career fair in the past. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about sort of steps that you can take before the fair, what to expect during the fair, and then things you can do after the fair to maximize your experience. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to take yourself off mute, or you can just write in the chat. Either way, whatever is easiest for you. Kate is here with me to monitor that chat box. So if I miss your hand or I miss something that you've written in the chat, hopefully Kate will be able to alert me. And we'll also have time for questions at the end as well. So if you'd rather wait and hold them to the end, that is also fine. All right, so let's just go ahead and get started with some things that I recommend doing before the fair. So the first thing obviously you're going to want to do is to register for the fair. And just to kind of give you an overview of what you can expect, we have right now over 100 employees that are going to be participating. I think we have about 118 at this point. And all of those employees will have a chance to create schedules. So they'll do one-on-one sessions and group sessions. So an employer might think, okay, I would love to have a chance to meet some students individually and have a little bit of a dialogue, get to know them, kind of see what students are out there that might be curious about our organization. And they also might want to do a group session where a bunch of students can all come in the room at once and they can just do kind of like an info session, a coffee chat, just a way to get the word out to a bunch of students at once. So once you register for the fair, you'll have the chance to decide for yourself what you want that fair time to look like. Do you want to do a bunch of one-on-ones with different companies? Do you want to attend some group sessions? So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today, is how to create that schedule for yourself. So the fair is from 1 to 4, next Friday, the 11th. So maybe you'll have a one-on-one from 1 to 1:10, and then you'll do a group session, and then you'll do another one-on-one. So setting up that schedule is going to be really important. Also, since this is a virtual session, it all relies very heavily on technology. So there are just some tips and tricks, things that you're going to want to be paying attention to before the fair starts to make sure that your technology is up to date, is raring to go, is not going to cut out on you at the very last second, right when you have to meet with an employer. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can prep your technology to serve you best. And then how to research those employers, see kind of who those 118-ish employers are that are going to be at the fair, and choose which ones you want to add to your schedule. So let's talk a little bit about how to do those different tasks. So first of all, this is what you'll see when you're on your own Handshake page. To register for the fair, you want to find the fair first as an event. So if you may be familiar with, up at the top of Handshake, there's different tabs. There's jobs, events, and employers. If you go to the events tab, it will probably pop up. You can filter by career fair too, and you'll see it, Tough Spring 2022 Virtual Career Fair. If you click on that, you can register. It'll look like this. This is the page you'll see if you click on the career fair. And over here in the right side corner, it says register. You can go ahead and click on that, and then you'll be able to set up your schedule. Again, I will do a screen share at the end and actually walk you through what that will look like in real time. But before anything else, you do need to register. You cannot attend the fair unless you've already registered, because that's the only way that you can set up a schedule. And you need to make sure that you're, taking a slot ahead of time so that an employer doesn't get booked up with other students and then you have no chance to meet with them. So throughout this session, I'm going to have some pro tips that are going to pop up every once in a while. These are just some things to keep in mind as you're getting ready for the fair. One really important thing is that when you create your Handshake profile, there's an option to set your privacy settings. So you can decide if you want to be able to have your profile be viewed by employers or if it's just entirely private. So some students prefer to just keep their use of Handshake to be like a job board. I use it to see what jobs are available. I don't want anyone contacting me. I don't want anyone to see me. That's totally fine. However, for the purpose of the career fair, you do need to change your privacy settings to community, because that's the only way that employers can interact with you. And it's really important that you do that. So if you go to the top right corner where you see your initials on your Handshake page, that's where you can find the option to change your profile privacy. So just make sure that if you do want to attend the fair, that you update that. You can always change it back to private afterwards if you don't like being on community long-term. So in terms of prepping your tech, what are some things that are important to make sure that you have a smooth experience? Obviously, you need internet connection. I'm sure all of you have been attending too many webinars to count since the pandemic started. So you're well aware that you do need a strong internet connection in order to do any of these sorts of experiences, especially when they involve video. You also are going to need speakers and a microphone so that you can have those dialogues, those conversations with the employers on those video calls. You also need a supported device. So you can use a desktop, you can use a laptop, you can use your phone. You can access Handshake either through a browser on your phone or through an app. I don't recommend using the app for the purpose of the career fair. The Handshake app is a really great resource for other things and other ways to utilize that platform. But for the career fair, I really do recommend using a browser on an actual computer if possible, just because it's easier to navigate. When you're doing a video call, you want to actually be able to like see people's faces and be able to chat in a chat box and everything like that. We also strongly recommend that you use Chrome. So, if you use Safari or something, typically that might not work very well. It's not really a supported browser with Handshake. And so Chrome is really the number one. I think you can get away with using Firefox, but it's probably not going to be as good. So if you have the Chrome browser, strongly recommend that you have that geared up and ready to go so that you can conduct the whole fair through that browser. Another pro tip, there's this really cool platform called Twilio. And if you click on the link here, I will be sending out this PowerPoint so you have access to it. You can go to Twilio and test all of your tech. So the day of the fair, you can go in and it'll kind of have these it'll walk you through some different ways to be like, okay, test your microphone. Okay, test your video. And you can just confirm that it all works before the fair actually starts so that you don't have to freak out at the last second when you realize that your internet isn't as strong as you thought it was. The next thing you're going to want to do is to take a look at the employers that are going to be actually at the fair and see, do you recognize some of the names? Are there companies that you've always been curious about? Are there companies you've never heard of, but it turns out that they're doing work that you think is really, really cool and you want to learn a little bit more? That's a really great step to take before you actually get to the fair, because then you can see, which people do I want to plan ahead to get a chance to meet? So take a look at that list and then find a few that you want to look up. So maybe you're curious about Wayfair. Again, I'm going to keep using that example, but you don't know too much about it. You can go to their Handshake page, you can go to their website, and you can just look around a little bit, poke around, see what kind of job opportunities they have, what kind of internships are there, what's their company culture like, are there any questions that you have for them that you would love the opportunity to talk to a recruiter and actually get a chance to ask? See what you can come up with and see, okay, does this seem like an employer that I think I would like to take some time to chat with? This is what the page will look like once you are registered for the fair. You can go to available sessions and it'll show you a whole list. You'll be able to scroll down on this page and just see the whole list of different employers that are going to be attending the fair. So you'll see here, the ones that are right at the top are Beta Group Inc. and Wayfair. It is also relevant to think about, okay, am I looking for a job that's based in Boston? Am I a senior and I'm going home to a different state and I'm looking for a job opportunity elsewhere? Am I looking for something remote? So you'll see here, Beta Group Inc. is based in Rhode Island, whereas Wayfair is based in Boston. So pay attention to that when you're looking at job opportunities, because you don't want to accidentally apply for a job that it turns out is in Rhode Island, but you don't live in Rhode Island. So to create your schedule, as you could see where it said Beta Group, there was a little window that said one-on-one with Beta Group. And it said that there were 4 open sessions. So when I click on that, this is the window that pops up and it'll show you, okay, Richard Bernardo is going to be there. He's the vice president, which is pretty cool. That's one of the things that's really neat about career fairs is sometimes there are just recruiters from a company that are there to meet with you, but sometimes it's people who are pretty high up on the totem pole. Getting the opportunity to do a one-on-one with the vice president of this company is a pretty cool thing. So you can see that he still has some time slots available. You can just click on whichever one you want and boom, you're all set to go. You'll be able to do a one-on-one with that employer at that time. The fair does run all the way from 1 to 4. So if you have that whole afternoon free, you can set up tons of different one-on-ones with tons of different employers. You do not have to. If you are only available from 3 to 4, but you have something else to do from 1 to 2, that's fine. You can just set up only one-on-ones that occur during that window of time that you're free. So there's definitely some flexibility there, but I recommend filling up your schedule as much as you want to ahead of time so that you aren't kind of scrambling at the last minute trying to find whatever open spots there still are for whatever employers are still out there. Another pro tip here, some employers do sign up for the fair a little bit later, or maybe they haven't set their schedule on Handshake yet. Most of them have, but sometimes maybe there's a last minute change. Their schedule changes, they have to add or remove things. So don't get discouraged if there's a company that you really love that doesn't seem to have any sessions available. They might be adding more. They might not have updated their schedule yet. That being said, I will also recommend, broadening your horizons a little bit. There are some really heavy hitters that are always going to be at the fair that everyone's going to turn to and say, oh, I've always wanted to work for Morgan Stanley. But maybe there's other companies that are going to be coming too that you've never even heard of. That could be a really great fit that you wouldn't have even known if you didn't give them a chance. So if you feel really bummed out that the kind of big heavy hitter companies that you were really excited about are already full, it's still worth considering meeting with some others. If nothing else, it's a good way to practice your networking skills, ask some questions, just kind of get a little more information to get a better kind of lay of the land of whatever industry you're interested in. whether or not it turns out that they have a job you want to apply for. So just keep an open mind is what I would say. Okay, before we move on to things to look out for during the fair, I just want to pause real quick and see if anybody has any questions about these kind of to-do items prior to the fair. Again, feel free to take yourself off mute, or you can write in the chat. No questions, pretty straightforward. Okay, cool. I'm going to keep going so that we can talk through what to expect during the fair itself. So first of all, you want to set yourself up for success generally. Double, triple check your technology. Just because it worked yesterday doesn't mean it still works today. One thing I know that I forget a lot is to make sure that my technology is charged. So if you're on your laptop or your phone and you realize that you have like 5% battery life, that's not going to bode well for you. So plan ahead, double check that you have everything that you need. I also recommend finding a quiet space to conduct the fair. Obviously, there's only so much that we can do these days, especially when we're all at home and maybe you have family members or roommates or other people that are kind of bouncing around in your background. Just do what you can. If there is somewhere you can go that's a little bit quieter for your own sake and for the sake of the employer, just to kind of reduce distractions is always going to be a good idea. If you want to, I'm actually not positive if this is going to be an option by the time we have the fair happening, but see how I've blurred my background? Handshake is in the process of adding a opportunity to do that for students so that you can blur your background. I'm not positive that it'll be ready by Friday because it's a new addition, but if it is, that's something you can definitely implement if you want to. If you don't feel comfortable showing an employer your background, you can blur it. I also recommend just thinking about what you're wearing. You know, people can only see you from here to here when you're on a screen. So I'm wearing sweatpants right now. Nobody knows, that's fine. But you do want to make sure that you're, you know, that this part of you looks presentable. You know, if you have a blouse that you want to wear, a button up, if you want to put in some earrings, it doesn't have to be super duper polished and perfect, but you just want to kind of give a good impression. You don't want to be wearing a hoodie, things like that. You also want to be remembering those questions. So when you were perusing the different employers, taking a look at their website, you might have come up with some questions that you had that you wanted to ask an employer. So have some questions ready. If you're doing a one-on-one especially, really take advantage of that time and ask some thoughtful questions. It'll help you, and it will also demonstrate to the employer that you're thoughtful and curious and you've cultivated specific things that you want to learn more about, and that's going to make you look good. So definitely ask questions. And be on time, don't ghost. These employers are taking a lot of time out of their day to give you the opportunity to meet with them. So one-on-ones are only 10 minutes long. That goes by super duper quick. If you're 4 minutes late to a 10-minute long conversation, that's almost halfway done by the time you've gotten in the room. So really do try to keep track of your time and be on top of your schedule so you know exactly when you're expected to show up. And please do, you know, keep in mind that you might have taken a spot that somebody else would have wanted. So follow through on your commitment and show up for that time slot if you signed up for it. Another pro tip that I would recommend is to have a notebook or something nearby where you can jot down some notes. You might get some helpful information from these conversations, and then 20 minutes later, it's completely flown out of your mind because you talked with 3 other employers afterwards. So just, you know, write some stuff down. I recommend even asking the employer for their contact information while you have them right there on the video call. You can jot down their email and then you can reach out to them later. So definitely always a good idea. I bring a notebook whenever I have an interview or a coffee date or anything that I'm ever doing to kind of move ahead my networking and my connection building for my career. Just always a good tip. So this is what the video call generally will look like, certainly for a one-on-one. When it's a group session, there will be more than just you in the call, but this is just kind of an overview of what that would look like. Down at the bottom, it's cut off in this image, but down here is where you'd be able to mute or unmute yourself, turn your camera on or off, just like in a Zoom call. I'm sure you're all very familiar. And over here, you can also have a chat going on this at the same time. So for instance, if a recruiter wanted to give you their email address, they could type that into the chat just like we have on Zoom. You are able to join your session up to 5 minutes early. So if you're meeting with an employer at 1:30, you will be able to click the link to get into the video at 1:25. Your employer might not be there yet. They might be finishing up a call with somebody else. But if you're sitting there waiting, you might as well get right in there so that you can make sure that everything is running smoothly and you can get yourself settled. The call also will automatically, you close out of it at the end of your 10 minutes, but the call will stay open for a little bit longer, I think up to 20 minutes. So if you don't have another session in your schedule and your employer doesn't have another session in their schedule and you're having a really great conversation and you want to keep chatting, you can stay in that call for up to 20 minutes more if you really want to. But keep in mind that most likely you both are going to have other places you have to be at the end of that 10 minutes. You might have another student, they might be meeting with another student, you might be meeting with another employer. So you might not be able to have that extra time, but that's a big part of why exchanging contact information can be helpful so that you can follow up if you think of another question after the fact. So I wanted to also just run through some troubleshooting, some things that students get a little bit nervous about before their first fair, things they run into and they're like, oh no, what do I do? What do I do? And I don't want anybody to panic. There's lots of solutions for a lot of issues that might pop up during the fair. One thing students run into sometimes is like, what do I do if my internet isn't working? I tried all the things. I thought it was working at the time. I tried Twilio, everything seemed fine. And then it stopped working in the middle of a one-on-one and I'm freaking out, right? I'm no tech wizard here. I'm sure you all know just as well as I do how to reset a router and things like that. But just for your peace of mind, I wanted to put some tips right here on the slide. You can reset your router. You can move closer to your router if you're in a different room. If you have 50 tabs open, like I sometimes do on my browser, close out of some of them, refresh your page, restart your browser or close the app, restart your whole computer, try a different browser. So if you're using Firefox and it isn't working, try Chrome. There are definitely things that you can kind of poke around with and see if it helps. If it doesn't, and you have to miss a session, that is not the end of the world. It's a bummer for you, but you can also just reach out to the employer and say, I'm so sorry, here's what happened. I had tech issues. I'd still really love to talk to you. Do you have, maybe you have an open time later that same day in your schedule, or maybe they're open to rescheduling for a different day and they can just send you a Zoom link next week and talk to you then outside of the fair time. So that's still definitely an option. It's not the end of the world if you have to miss a session because your tech is freaking out on you. Happens to the best of us. We're all very familiar with that in these current virtual times. Another thing that comes up a lot that students can get nervous about is what happens if you show up in the video call and your recruiter never shows up? That's upsetting and unsettling, right? Again, don't panic. It's not the end of the world. Give them a couple minutes. It's possible they're just running a little bit late. Maybe they're talking to another student. Maybe they're having a tech issue. So hold tight, give them a few minutes, see if they show up. You can also send them a message on Handshake, or you can find their email address on their Handshake page and just shoot them a message and say, hey, I'm here in the call. I was set up to meet with you. Is everything okay? They might say, oh, I'm so sorry. My my video isn't working. Here, I'm just going to send you a Zoom link and we can meet over Zoom instead. So sometimes there is a quick fix. And sometimes you might just have to reschedule for later in the day. Maybe they're like, I'm so sorry, something just came up, but I do have an open spot at 2. So there are ways to get in contact with the employer directly and troubleshoot together if they're available. You can also let us know. So just to kind of give you some context for what the Career Center staff is going to be up to on the day of the fair, we're all here. We're all going to be at our laptops ready to help you. So I'm going to be in a Zoom room that's a student help room, essentially, and it's going to be open from 12 to 4 on the day of the fair. If you are having an issue, be it a tech issue, an employer connection issue, you can pop into that Zoom call and talk to me directly. And that's helpful for me too. Even if you just want to reach out to me via email and be like, hey, wanted to give you a heads up that I waited 10 minutes and my employer never showed. That's helpful for me because then we can communicate directly with that employer and find out what's going on. So I'm going to be in a student room, and then my colleagues, Kate and Sue, are going to be in an employer room. So they have their own Zoom room set up specifically for employers that are having troubles. And so those employers can pop in there and say, hey, here's what's going on. And if I reach out to Kate and Sue and I say, hey, heads up, this student told me that an employer didn't show up to their 1 o'clock, Sue and Kate are going to get on the phone and they're going to call that employer right there and then, and they're going to say, hey, what's going on? Are you able to show up? So I just want to make sure that you all understand that we're working behind the scenes with you to make sure that things are running as smoothly as possible. Also, if it doesn't work out and you're not able to meet with that employer, that's okay. You know, you can reach out to them after the fact and say, hey, I was bummed that we weren't able to meet at 1. Are you free next week to do a call? And they probably will. You know, sometimes an employer just has a last minute emergency and something goes wrong and they're just not able to show up. They will want to make that up to you. So rest assured that you will still be able to connect with them probably at a later date. Pro tip, Handshake doesn't actually permit you. I'm actually going to go back on something I just said a minute ago. Handshake doesn't permit you to sign up for another one-on-one with the same person, but sometimes an employer has multiple different recruiters representing their company at a fair. So maybe Wayfair has 4 different people that are leading one-on-ones. If you've already signed up for a one-on-one with Sam and Sam doesn't show up, instead of trying to set up another one-on-one with Sam later in the day, you could sign up for a one-on-one with Sam's colleague, Jim, who's going to be available at 3, and talk to Jim. So if Handshake gives you trouble and won't let you sign up for another session with the same employer, that's just kind of a bug, then you can just sign up with a different employer if there's another employer available who has an open time slot. As I said, there is a student Zoom room that will be open from 12 to 4 on the day of the fair. When I send out this PowerPoint to you guys, there will be a link that will bring you right to that Zoom room so you can have that up and available so that if you run into any issues during the fair, or even if it's noon, the fair doesn't start till 1, but you have a question before things get started, feel free to pop on in that room and I can chat with you. Questions before we move on to after the fair? Okay. Hopefully this stuff is relatively straightforward. Again, you can always reach out to me later on. You can write a question in the chat if you think of it. So after the fair, what comes next? You've completed your whole afternoon. You've met with a bunch of really cool employers. What do you do from there? Sometimes that can be a little overwhelming. So there are a few things. First of all, you will be invited to message the employers that you met with. So there's going to be something that pops up on your screen that's like, thanks for meeting with Jim. Do you want to send him a personal message? I always recommend following up. You always want to send a thank you. And I think that's just good practice for any sort of networking opportunity you ever have. So whether you're, just setting up a coffee chat with somebody, whether you are doing an interview, if you're at a career fair, anytime an employer takes time out of their day to meet with you and answer questions, you always want to follow up with a thank you. That looks really, really good. So take advantage of the fact that Handshake is going to prompt you directly and say, yeah, I'd love to write to that employer. And you can just send them a quick note saying, thanks so much for taking the time. Maybe list 1 or 2 things that you've learned or found really interesting about the conversation. And, if you are really interested in applying for one of their job opportunities, you can give them a heads up that you're planning on submitting an application. Whatever makes sense, you can add that into your note. There is a hot link here on this PowerPoint that will take you to a page that gives you some advice on how to write a good thank you note. Other things you can do is go back to that employer's Handshake page again and see if they have current openings. Maybe they have a job opportunity that now you've learned a little bit more about them. You're kind of curious and you might want to apply for something. Definitely worth checking in. I also think you might want to set up an advising appointment with the Career Center. So the Career Center is always available to chat with somebody about your career moves, what you want to do next. Sometimes I think students are hesitant to sign up for a session if they're not really sure what their question is, or they don't really know how to make use of an advisor. But I think this is an example of a great time to just say, I want to make a game plan. I had these great conversations with these employers. I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to move forward. Should I apply for this job or that job? What if there's no jobs? What do I do? Sometimes just having somebody to like process the experience with and talk and like kind of put together a game plan and put together some steps that you can take, somebody else who can kind of help you organize your thoughts, can be super helpful. So definitely recommend setting up an advising appointment with the Career Center. I will add a link in here as well so that you can just, it'll take you right to the page on Handshake where you can sign up for a time slot. We also are going to complete, we're going to send out a survey that we would love for students to complete, just to kind of give us feedback on how the experience was for you, any advice that you have on how we can make things better in the future. And as part of that survey, there's also going to be instructions in the survey for how to submit your resume. So if your resume is already on your Handshake profile, then employers will have access to that resume. So if they really liked you and they want to learn more about you after your one-on-one, they can find your resume on your profile. However, we also have an opportunity for employers to request a resume book. And so all the students that attend the career fair who want to submit their resume to be part of the resume book can upload it into a folder, and we're going to send all of them at once to the employers. So that means that there might be an employer that you did not meet with during the career fair, but they are interested in hiring somebody who is in your major. They might look through all the resumes and pull out all the ones that are relevant to their job listing, and they might reach out to you, even though they didn't talk to you at the fair. So that's just another way to get your resume under more employers' noses, and that gives you more opportunities or more chances to potentially get a job. Another pro tip here is, just like on a lot of other kinds of social media, there you have all options to like and follow different companies, different job postings. And when you follow an employer on Handshake, if you click the follow button, you'll get regular updates. If that employer uploads a new job opportunity, uploads an internship, maybe they're hosting an event, you'll get a notification that'll say, hey, this person that you follow is they just had new activity on their page. So maybe you're super interested in working for Wayfair, you met with them at the fair, they don't actually have any job openings right now that seem like a good fit. If you follow their page on Handshake, you'll get updates if they ever do add any new jobs, and maybe that way you'll find one that is more relevant to your interests. So it's definitely worth just giving any employers you like a follow. This is just an image of what pops up on your schedule after you've met with somebody at the fair. So this is Tina Reynolds, whose job title is Cupcake Aficionado. Sounds like the best job I could possibly imagine, at a company called Sprinkle Dreams. This is just kind of a mock example, but say you had a one-on-one with Tina. After you finish that conversation, this is what your screen is going to look like. It's going to say, hey, continue the conversation, send them a note. And you can just click send a message, and then you can write a message to Tina and say, it was really great to meet you and hear about your favorite cupcake flavors. And that's just a good way to keep that conversation going. Ultimately, I think the biggest takeaway here is to keep calm. This is not going to be as stressful as it might sound. If you have any sort of issues with the tech or with employers not showing up, it's going to be fine. We're here to support. If you can't meet with somebody when you hoped you would, you can probably find a way to meet with them at a later date. So keep calm, carry on. Everything's going to be great. You're all going to have a really awesome time. I just wanted to add in some hot links here too that will be available to you when I send you this PowerPoint. Download the Handshake app if you haven't done that yet. It's on Android and iPhone, so we'll have the links there so that you can go ahead and do that if you haven't already. It's nice to just kind of have access to Handshake on the move. If you haven't created or completed your Handshake profile yet, definitely recommend doing that. You can access the recording from last week's session that I led that was all about how to set up your profile on Handshake. So if you need some advice or support on how to do that, you can access that on our YouTube page. You can also follow the Tufts Career Center on Instagram if you don't already. That would be really helpful for us just to get more traction, get more people viewing our content. We do have another workshop that's just a little bit more of an in-depth here's how to prepare yourself for the career fair. Today's session has been a little bit more focused on the nitty-gritties of Handshake and technology, but this other Prepare for the Fair webinar, which is on our YouTube page, is a little bit more focused on, how to write an elevator pitch, how to talk to an employer, how to present yourself in a way that will make them impressed by you and want to get to know you more. So if you're curious to learn a little bit more about that, you can watch that Prepare for the Fair video on our YouTube page. And this last one is last week's session that I led, Get Hired on Handshake, 5 Ways to Get Noticed by Employers. So again, if you take a look at that, you can get a little bit more support around how to set up your Handshake profile and what pieces are really important. One of the things that we're hoping to do through this Handshake campaign these several weeks, is to get more students completing their profiles. Having a complete profile really, really makes a big difference in your greater, career search process. If your profile is complete, you're significantly more likely to get reached out to by an employer who might be just reaching out to students who they think might be a good fit for opportunities based on your career interests, your experiences, your skill sets. So you want to put all of that out in the open as much as you can so that you'll attract more employers. So you can view that webinar to find more information about how to do that. And that is pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share and see if there's any other questions that people have before I just do a real quick walkthrough of the website in real time. Does anyone have any questions? Nada. Okay, that's a good sign. I hope that means that you all feel super confident. Maybe some of you have already attended career fairs in the past. All right, I'm going to real quick in the remaining minutes that we have. I am going to, just hold on one moment here. Let me pull up my page. Here we go. All right, can everybody see this? This is what you will see if you log into Handshake. Maybe this is familiar to some of you, but this is just kind of the main homepage. Up over here, you'll see your initials. If you click on this, this is where you can take a look at your profile. You can update your profile. You can change your settings over here. You can alter your career interests. All of this stuff can be done over in this corner. If you want to register for the career fair and you haven't yet, what you want to do is you want to go to events, this tab up here, and find events. So again, it's popping up automatically for me, but if it doesn't pop up for you, you can go to career fair and that will probably bring it up, or even in the search bar here, you can type virtual career fair and you'll see Tough Spring 22 virtual career fair. I'm going to click on that. And this brings me to the career fair homepage. So you can look through this and learn a little bit. There's a bunch of resources here, hot links that you might want to take a look at to get more support and suggestions on how to maximize your use of this experience. If you scroll back up to the top, right here, register in blue, I'm going to click register. And it's going to take me to a quick little survey. So it's going to ask, what's my primary goal? Let's see. For me, my primary goal is to explore opportunities in organizations. I acknowledge that if I want my resume included in a resume book, I am going to have to take the proactive step of submitting it. Yes. And I need to complete the feedback survey as well. I understand that I need to create a schedule in order to participate. Yes. And I understand the no-show policy. So as I said, we really do want to respect our employer's time, and we don't want any students to sign up for a session and then not show up. That really is just a bummer. It doesn't look great for us, doesn't look great for you. And it's too bad. We want students to be able to take as much use of these open spots as possible. So that is a policy of ours, that you show up to the sessions that you sign up for, and that if you do no-show, then that may result in loss of access to Handshake functionality. Of course, again, we understand there might be tech issues. So if there's something going on for you that made it really hard for you to show up, we of course will take that into account. So I'm going to say yes and finish. I have successfully registered for the career fair. Hooray. So now it's going to take me back to this main page here. And if I scroll down here, you can see these different tabs. So right now I'm on career fair details, but I can also click on your schedule. Right now, my schedule is empty. It's so sad. There are no sessions. I need to remedy that. So I'm going to go over to available sessions. And if I scroll down, I can see a whole bunch of employers. So again, this is the page we already saw on my screenshot. So you'll see the first two are Beta Group Inc. and Wayfair. But there's also so many more. Alpha Sites, Makita Investment Group, Framingham Public Schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on and on. There's 10 pages of employers. So peruse them at your leisure and take a look. You'll see that, so for Wayfair, they have 9 open one-on-one sessions. But then for Alpha Sites, they actually have an info session. So if I click on this, then you'll see that from 3:30 to 4, they're hosting a group session where they're just going to kind of share a little bit about their company and what they do. So that's a little bit less pressure. It's not just you and them. There's going to be a whole bunch of other students as well. And it's really just to take in the information. So if you want to sign up for this half-hour group session, just hit confirm, and that will be added right to your schedule. So I'm going to confirm this for now. I can cancel that later. And it says, great, get ready to meet with Alpha Sites. Hooray, make sure that your resume is visible, etc. So I'm going to close out of that. And now that I've signed up for this session, if I go back up to your schedule, now it says it right here. Bam, I've signed up for the Alpha Sites info session. It's from 3:30 to 4. It starts in 7 days. And when it becomes time to go log in, I can just go over here to join video and it will let me join, and then I'll be right there in the video room. So it's pretty straightforward. All of your sessions will just be added in here as you go along. Any questions or anything that anybody wants me to quickly navigate through while I'm here? One of the things that is kind of frustrating to me that I discovered the other day is that if you're in the fair and you go to the different companies, like say I want to look at Beta Group's Handshake profile, you actually can't do it from this page, which is weird to me. So say you want to look at Beta Group's Handshake page, you can just copy it and like go to employers and paste it in here and say, this is who I'm looking for. And then you can actually go to their real page. I don't know why there isn't a link that brings you directly there from that page, but here's, if you want to learn a little bit more about Beta Group, you can look here. Oh, am I interested in working with them? Okay, they're giving me the option to maybe chat with somebody. Here's a little bit of who they are, what they do. Here's contact information. So you can take a look at their website, you can email. You can see different students that have worked here before. So if you want to reach out to Caroline and say, hey, how was your experience at Beta Group? I'm curious about it. You can start a dialogue there. That's pretty cool. Here's the open jobs that they have currently. So you can click see all and see everything that you could sign up for if you wanted to. And then if you go up here, follow, that's how you can regularly stay connected and see what's going on with Beta Group. So if you go to employers, then you can select just to look at the employers you follow. Right now, I don't follow anybody, but if I did, they would show up right there and you can see them all in one place. All right. I think those are the major things to be thinking about. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share. Any last minute questions? I'm going to give one more chance for people to ask anything they want to know. Otherwise, we can sign off. Okay, real quick, I'm actually going to put my email address in the chat here. So feel free to reach out to me if you do come up with any questions later or if you run into any issues. I will be sending this PowerPoint to everybody via email, so you can find access to the Zoom room there and any other links that you're curious about. All right. Cool. Thank you guys so much for joining. I hope that that was helpful, and I hope that we see you at the fair. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. I know it's kind of icy and gross out there right now. Have a good one. Bye.